Hello, I'm David Kain. I'm the president of Kain Automotive, and I'm really pleased today to introduce you to my friend David Steinberg. David is the CEO of Foureyes, and you probably have heard of him through a company called Adherence that he also was the CEO of, and he can tell a little bit more about that. But today we're going to concentrate on Foureyes and what that product does for the industry, and more particularly what it does for our clients to drive success for them. So welcome aboard, David. Thanks a lot for joining me today.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me. I think it's great what you're doing. You're putting out really good content right now, so it's great to see.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. It's it's one of those things to where we were talking earlier. All the time we meet, and I've spent plenty of time with you. You've spoken to several of my 20 groups. You've been to our workshop, but to a large degree, we've never had a chance to socialize or even really get to spend time talking about business dynamics and stuff. So if you could acclimate the audience to who you are, how you came to be who you are, and what's the makeup of Foureyes.
Yeah, I mean, so I've always been a entrepreneur, but more importantly, I guess I've always been like an inventor. Like I've sort of invented stuff, and businesses are just the mechanism to get your invention out into the world. With Foureyes, my previous companies, I've been a hack programmer my whole life. And so my previous company before Foureyes was actually a lumber company, a sustainable lumber company. And I built a really rustic version of Foureyes that allowed me to see what my customers were doing online. And more importantly, it also linked the phone call. I could see what callers, when they called me, were doing on my website. And I realized in the sales relationship, those were actually my highest performing leads. If someone was calling me, it was the best lead. So I built this really rustic system that allowed me to see when they were back on the website and see everything they were doing. And it was like this amazing trick almost. Like I was so efficient as a salesperson because I could follow. I would be like, I sent a quote to David Kain. He called me 3 weeks ago. I haven't heard back from him. He's dead. He's a lost lead. I'd see you pop back up on the website and go, oh, I'm gonna call him. I wasn't even thinking about calling you. And people would be like, your timing's incredible. How'd you do this? And I was selling, I started selling like millions of dollars a year of basically reclaimed lumber with like no overhead. And it was incredible. And so when we started Adherence in 2009, I just figured this technology existed, and that we would license something. And I went around, I started looking at other, like, outside of automotive, like Marketo and Eloqua and like some of these systems. And they were all built for the marketing department. And I started saying, wait a second, no. I want a tool for the salesperson. And I think it's a really fascinating time because I've always been a believer, like where there's so much opportunity for innovation is sort of the unintended consequence of technology, right? Like there's all these unintended consequences we just forget about.
Yeah.
And what's happening is like when we put all our information online and we do all this stuff and what's the unintended consequence is people don't feel like they need the salesperson anymore. And so you have your salespeople who are suddenly struggling to produce value. And you're having your salespeople where they're making more phone calls, emails, texts, and they're talking to less people. And turnover is higher. They're not feeling good. They're not able to hit their numbers. And so sorry, that's my dog. This is the new world. So the unintended consequence of that is like the dealership where salespeople should be their asset are no longer their asset. And so it's my whole belief is we can turn that on its head and make salespeople really productive. But if you put all your inventory online, how do you bring your salespeople online? How do you make them incredibly efficient in this new world? Because that's the reality. It's about being efficient.
Yes.
I also think like it's really interesting to me with all this. We're in such an interesting time. Like I'm so grateful to be a leader right now because. I learned, I started my first company during the .com, right before the .com crash. So it was, I'm grateful that I got to navigate a company through the .com crash.
Yes.
And then navigate a company through 9/11, right? And then navigate a company through the housing crash, and financial crash. And this is just an amazing, so this feels like old hat to me. This is like my comfort zone.
Yeah.
But I think what's really interesting about these times is like, we're dealing with like the time, it's a wartime. You know, you're essentially, every company is like having to be a startup again.
Yes.
And how do we approach it? I think it's really interesting because I see like the common mistake I think you see is, and you see this at the OEM level, frankly, where like OEMs are doing a lot of this, is in wartime, you confuse strategies and tactics. So you just, because you want to be quick decision making.
Yes.
So you think like, oh, okay, buying process sucks. What are we doing to improve the buying process? And then you just take a tactic. You're like, oh, not to say this tactic is wrong or right, but you said digital retailing, or you say some tactic, and that becomes your new strategy.
Yeah.
And you didn't actually say, well, what are we doing to truly improve that process? And there's so much opportunity, you know. And I think that the reality is like buying a car is still a considered purchase.
Yes.
And the difference in close rate, and you know this, I know this from watching what you do. The difference in a 9% close rate and an 18% close rate is your people and how you leverage them, coach them, and make them be successful.
Completely.
And so I think Foureyes plays in that space of how do we take someone and take them from that 9% close rate to that 18% close rate.
Well, so let's talk about how it does work hand in glove with what we teach, because we'll develop a process cadence. We'll embed in the CRM. We'll teach proper language. We'll teach them how to talk on the phone, leave a good voicemail, write a good email, do texting, do video, all things that provide personalization. But then oftentimes, the customer comes back on the website after we've had wonderful, good intent and good conversations. Customers tend to hide. What I love about the Foureyes product is it allows me to have that second set of eyes. In fact, if you reconsider the name of your company, it would be Eyes in Back of Your Head, right? So
yeah.
A little too long to work with, but I like that concept.
Well, and you think about that too. So the challenge is all this stuff you teach, right? Of better process, really paying attention, treating your leads like gold, really giving them that white glove treatment. It breaks down when a salesperson says, you know what, I did what David Kain told me to do. I did it 7 times and I didn't get any response.
Yes.
And now I'm demotivated, and now I'm writing bad responses and I'm not replying well because I don't think it pays for itself.
Yeah. So
the art is directing that behavior to the people where they're actually going to bring that sale across the line. Mm-hmm. Right? That's and like, you know, I think like so much of like, I'm old school in a lot of ways. Like I think so much of old school sales management is like, where am I getting my leads? How am I closing them?
Yeah.
Just old school. And we've actually made that problem like way more confusing than it actually needs to be, right?
Yeah.
And in old school sales management, you start with your cream. These are my top performing leads. These are my Glengarry leads. Yeah. I work them, and you build that process down. And what happens is dealers get inundated with leads. Dealers oftentimes don't have a leads problem. Their difference is not in getting more leads. Their difference is in getting a higher close rate off the leads they're getting. Amen. And so like when you talk about your process, like the thing where I say is, well, let's run that process. Let's create good videos. Let's create good content. Let's create it. But here are the 6, you have 60 names assigned to you in the CRM, but here are the 6 that are worth it to do that.
Yeah.
Here are the 6 that, oh, and by the way, this guy you thought was lost, he's back on the website. He was on the website last night. He was looking at specials. He was looking at incentives. He was pricing this out. He's not lost. He's worth your time.
Yes.
Right. And yeah, and then I think part of it too is like we're also, you know, the other thing we've done is we've said, well, what is that task you're doing that you're not able to do at scale? Right? Because what happens as technology evolves is there's all these tasks that start falling out because you just can't do them at scale.
Sure. Yes.
And the one thing we've seen is like dealers can't communicate. Dealers make all these inventory changes. Like, you know, you look at how much gross dealers give up by just dropping prices.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, oh, well, we just got to drop our prices. And it's like, you are leaving so much money on the table, and you actually don't need to do that. Right. So what we do is, one of the things we do is our prospect engagement tool, where we say, we're going to monitor everything that's happening on your inventory. And just like Amazon would do, or just like a good online retailer, we're just going to reach out to the consumer directly as you make those changes. But what that actually allows people to do is, rather than drop your prices on all your Jeep Grand Cherokee, drop them on one, right? Take one, it'll trigger a bunch of emails and a bunch of communication to those clients. But now you haven't done it on every single one. You don't need to do it on every price, on every, and maintain some of that gross. You know, where like, it's really interesting.
That's actually brilliant. And you know, the thing of it is, we become so formulaic in our business to where we're like, okay, got to lower the prices. Anything over 60 days, drop that hammer and let's bring it down. But that kind of strategic thinking just kind of flies by the wayside. And I think to a large degree, David, let's talk about how you coach me on that, because if I sign up for Foureyes, just as I sign up for any kind of technological boost or some sort of a software program, one of the biggest reasons, and I bet if I looked in your computer programs or your applications, there's a lot of orphans in there. Hey, that's a great idea. I'm going to sign up for that. And then, you know, 3 weeks later, you're like, what was that cool application I was doing? So how do you all make Foureyes live in the minds of your customers? Because I was on the phone the other day with Chip Alvey at the Oxmoor Automotive Group in Louisville, and Chip and I are going through his drive-centric CRM, and we're going through the cadence of follow-up, and he's given me his perspective of things, and I said, what's that? And he goes, oh, that's David's tool, and he knows you one-to-one, and he goes, that's Foureyes, and the customer came back online and it automatically sent them a message. And I was like, yeah, that's brilliant. And I'd never seen it laid out in the CRM that way. So that level of integration, that level of, hey, we got your back, so to speak, really plays well for our clients.
Well, and I think there's really two schools of thought. And we now, having learned this very well, like whenever we build, because Foureyes we have a suite of basically modules that you can enable with Foureyes, depending on your needs. But that one of the things, when we always bucket our modules into, does it require the dealer's interaction or does it not require the dealer's interaction? And so when you talk about requiring the dealer's interaction, you're actually talking about sort of a next level up. Because you're asking them to do something, and you're whether you want to be or not, you're suddenly in the business of behavior change. And so we've kind of learned that. So like a lot of like the tool that, like, part of the tool that Chip is using, multiple tools, but part of the tool that Chip is using is actually working without him doing anything. Right? It's actually strategically designed that way. Yeah. So that we can say, hey, this is something we know you're busy. We know you have a million initiatives going on. And by the way, when you want to get more out of it, we'll be ready for you to get more out of it. But you can meet us, like, let's first get you to get that lift in close rate. And we can do that without you actually doing anything. And we do that with our systems that are basically watching your inventory and watching how shoppers are interacting with your inventory. And just bolting on the communication that we know they're missing. Right. And it works. I mean, like, shoppers, you know what, it was funny in Adherence, when we first started Adherence, we were putting out a lot of kind of product messaging and helping with a lot of SEO content and putting it on the dealer websites. And one of the things we could see is that the consumer don't use dealer websites for like inventory education. Yeah. They're not getting educated on the tier 3 websites. They're using the tier 3 websites to shop inventory. Mm-hmm. So if you just say, if you just go, okay, great, then every communication to the consumer needs to be about inventory, you know. And so much of communication to consumers is like, well, when are you going to come in? When are you going to help me meet my number? Yeah. It's like, no. Here's what's happening with our inventory. And now, like with Foureyes, we're now able to say, oh, you know, by the way, because maybe instead of when you lowered the price on that one Jeep Grand Cherokee or that one vehicle, we say, hey, this vehicle that you're interested in, this is the best priced vehicle in the market. Now, your other 40 are not. But, you know, draw them in, get them to interact with your website, rally that up to a salesperson, get them in. And then they go, oh, you know what, this wasn't the trim package I want, but I like everything else about this experience. This was the trim I want, and keep your.
Yeah. So, but the truth of the matter is, Dave, I'm a great salesperson. I know all, I see all. I don't need this technology to boost me. If somebody goes online, I just have like a twitch in my elbow, right? I can sense the weather and I can sense when customers. So Foureyes just gets in the way. I'd rather just do my own follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll tell you that about a third of the leads that you're marking lost, right? That you think are lost and that you, from your twitchy elbow, are not lost. They're actually still shopping your website. Now, a lot of the leads that you're actually spending your time on are lost, and you're chasing down and you're spending inefficient time. So I mean, one of the things we've done a bunch of, like, I can tell any dealer who the leads are that are at that 15% close rate. They have a more than 15% chance of closing at any given time.
Yeah.
Those are the ones you want to spend your time on. Get those,
Yeah.
and build a master process to closing those, and then apply that process downstream. But we have too much data, and part of it too, like we've learned with Foureyes is the trick with data is not giving more data. The trick with data is actually giving less data, but the right information. I think there's a whole like lesson here.
Oh yeah.
Because I think the automotive industry struggles from what you'd call unstructured data. We just take 1 million data points and we're supposed to make decisions off of these, rather than starting with structured data would be where am I getting my leads and how am I closing them? And we always say good data doesn't answer questions. Good data asks better questions.
Yeah.
So then you go, okay, so here's where I'm getting my leads and here's where I'm closing them. Okay, so what's going on with these auto trader leads? Why am I only closing them at 5%? Is it a me problem or is it an auto trader problem?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And asking that question. Well, and then starting, good data asks it's structured questions. And I think that what happens is people think, oh, well, look at the data I can give you, and we're just giving this random ass data, hoping that people somehow can put it together and make an informed decision. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, no question.
So we've learned with salespeople, especially your Twitch, that person, the old school people, are some of our best users, because what we're saying is, hey, do your job, but I'm going to point you in the direction of the 10 people that have had shopping activity that are on all over you, and now you go sell them. And so we realized early on, if we could cater to the old school salesperson, we would have a home run.
Yeah, no question. So speaking of politics aside, you and I are both a little more on the liberal side, particularly when it comes to that. And I always like to let people know that I'm socially liberal, but I'm fiscally conservative. I want to run a good business, and I want to do what's best for the country and all the people. So not to get into that, but I did have fun at one of our 20 group meetings. You sat across from Larry Linares with the Fisher Chevrolet store, and Larry's father was a Border Patrol agent, and he's just dyed-in-the-wool, true Republican, and you and he went back and forth and had the best time.
We battled
the whole way. Who's your biggest proponent now but Larry? And he says, begrudgingly, I had to listen to the guy. His tool is wonderful. It's helping our business grow. And, I still don't agree with his politics. I absolutely love. And I think that's the best of what you can do as businesses. You and I have to kind of put our any penchant for how we feel about things aside. At the common ground, we're working with customers who really are great people, and they want the best for their customers. And I think that's what drives me at our business is we really are designing systems and process and communication tactics to support what brings out the best in our clients. And that's why it's important for me to have conversations with industry leaders like you, David, because you won't rest, and you're always trying to invent something new.
Oh yeah.
I can't imagine what the future is going to hold. But if you were to pick, of your technologies, which one do you brag about? Which one do you put pictures on the refrigerator of and say, that's my boy?
I mean, I think that I love our. It's hard because I'm thinking right now of my team watching this video and saying who's my favorite child, right, of our modules. And I'm definitely guilty of I push our team hard. And I think one of the things about this like wartime that we're in is it's allowed me to be like extra driving on innovation, right? So, so we're doing some things. I mean, I think some of the things we're doing with, I'm really interested in helping salespeople have conversations that can make them be valuable, right? Because we have to give them stuff that allows them to add value in that considered purchase.
Yeah.
Because if they can do that, then they can walk their customer to more gross.
Yes.
And so, so we're doing a lot of really interesting things, and those are kind of those are moving through all of our products right now. But with like our inventory data and analysis, where we're saying, okay, wait a second, we can see this is the best price. We can see that this vehicle has more room and more third row seating room, and this is unique to the shopper. So feed like load the lips of the salesperson, so they can have that, and you can train them to be more knowledgeable on the products as well.
Yeah.
And so like that's some of where we're going. It's just getting salespeople to be productive, right? It's like it's gonna be all about efficiency. And I've said this, like, I think, look, as a tech guy, like with the warning I would give to automotive is that I'm a tech guy. I see some things that that are out there. Google, eBay, Amazon, they are wolves sniffing outside the door right now.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And the way that it's interesting. Like, I think about this all the time. I don't think this is a great analogy, but like I think about it. I remember in 2012, I was reading so much about hardware stores were going to die. Hardware stores were dead.
Yeah.
Right. And they've thrived. Hardware stores are like this, like really, and you think about someone who should have been disrupted. Hardware stores should be long gone. Like, talk about like home delivery, Prime, overnight. Like, get me those screws right now.
Yeah.
I don't have to go out and run to Home Depot. I don't have to make 6 trips. But and so it's sort of it's befuddled everybody of why are hardware stores successful. And I actually think that this is where a little bit of the opportunity for auto dealers lies, is that what they've found is that when Home Depot and Lowe's, remember, like Home Depot used to staff their with retired experts.
Oh yeah.
So when you went to Home Depot, you'd talk to like a plumber in the plumbing department. It was amazing. Right?
Yeah.
And then they let them all go. They cut their pay. Well, what happened is the hardware stores kind of filled that space of the local expert. And so they're doing really well because they're providing that degree of expertise around what is a really pretty minuscule nominal purchase oftentimes, right? So you just ask yourself, well, how do we do that in automotive, right? Where we make our people really valuable so that people go, no, I don't want to buy the car. Because trust me, those things are coming.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so it's, it's a fun challenge. It's an interesting time. It's dynamic. It's changing.
There's no question. And I've learned so much just watching human behavior, watching leadership. The nice byproduct, and I want to go back to Larry. He sent me I believe he called it woulda, coulda, shoulda sheet on the pandemic, things he would have done, could have done, should have done. And so I challenged our other 20 groups to do the same thing. And then one young lady from Belize Automotive Group says, and let's add glad I did. And I was like, yeah, what a wonderful exercise to sit here and say, I would have done this, could have done this, should have done this, and I'm glad I did this. And
well, what were some of the things you heard?
Cool. So some of them were compressing technology that are not compressing technology, compressing marketing that is just out there trying to bring on conquest and then realigning ourselves to those customers that have been with us for 3 purchases or 10 purchases or loyal to our service department, and really taking care of them, paying close attention to the technology like Foureyes and making sure that when somebody is awake and somebody is participating in the shopping behavior, that we're not just trying to advertise to the masses, we're marketing to that one-to-one. And so one-to-one personalization really rocks our world. It's what we teach all the time. And that seemed to be one of the real key outtakes. Another one is Zoom meetings, or equivalent to Zoom meetings, to where now we're seeing our sales team members that we're working with, we're encouraging this. As you can imagine, they're coming along kicking and screaming, but I'm like, didn't you go to church on Zoom? Didn't you go to a meeting on Zoom? Didn't you play cards with your friends on Zoom? And they're like, yeah, why wouldn't I want to try to sell somebody a $50,000 car?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Do you know what we just did, which on the woulda, coulda, shoulda thing, that like, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I didn't do this earlier, and it's changed a lot of my ideas. So we just did cohort analysis. Have you ever done cohort? Have you ever had dealers do cohort analysis? So basically, it's like where you take a set of, so you can take a set of sales. So you can look back, like, okay, January 2018, we sold, I'm making 100 cars. Okay, let's look at what have those 100 people spent with us over the course of the next 2 years. And then you compare that to February of 2018. And then what you can do is you drill it down to the salesperson. And you start to look, are salespeople having different outcomes, long-term outcomes with their customers? So we did that with our own salespeople, and we were shocked in that our concept of what the success we were rewarding was actually not what we thought. So people that were like sort of hitting their numbers and were sort of, oh my gosh, this person's crushing. I gotta be careful what I say here, but like people that were hitting their numbers, a dollar they were generating was worth 12 months later was nowhere near what people who were hitting less numbers were actually way more valuable for us.
Wow.
And so I was like, oh my God, dealers should be doing this with their salespeople, because they might find that they've got a guy that, maybe is only selling, 60% of the cars that their top performing guy is, but is building up, is getting a lot more business over the next 2-3 years from those car sales.
What a cool idea. Yeah.
That was one where, like, from now on, like, we're running cohort analysis all the time.
I think that's spectacular.
Yeah.
Hey, we're going to have to do this again, because out of the mind of Dave Steinberg comes a list of things that I've got to do. So thank you so much for spending time with us today. One ask I would really appreciate is if you could get one of your team members to provide us a short demo of your product offerings, and we'll tag that on the back of this. And that way, anybody who likes what you have to say and is interested, we didn't spend time doing a commercialization during this conversation, but that way we can tag it on, and people who are curious about it can say, hey, let me see what they do. So if you'd be so kind as to get somebody to help us to do that, I'd appreciate it. Yeah,
and I'll tell you too, one thing we've done in COVID that we never would have had the courage to do otherwise is we started doing 60-day no string attached demos.
Oh, love that.
And it's actually been a huge success. I like it because it allows people to experience our product, experience it, make sure it works for them, make sure we work together.
Yeah.
Which is also really important. And so we'll set that up, and additionally we'll extend that offer to new clients. Don't double dip. If you've already used your 60 days, warning you, Larry. But yeah, David, thank you so much.
All right, buddy. Listen, we'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Newton's third law is, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. The internet, putting all your inventory online, it's been great for marketing, but it's actually hurt our salespeople. Customers no longer feel like they need the salesperson, and you've seen all the overused stats about them coming into dealerships less. To win, obviously, you can't just take your inventory off your website, but instead, your sales team needs to regain the ability to drive the sale and be more informed and more efficient. More informed about the way your customers are shopping you, and more efficient at delivering an excellent sales process. Foureyes is sales intelligence software that supports the sexy and the unsexy aspects of sales. The unsexy, gritty parts is we're going to help you track your data and protect what you are already getting. The sexy parts, we're going to help you engage and sell better. Let me give you a quick look. We've divided the product into modules that are going to help solve specific challenges in sales. The first is simply getting a handle on your lead pipeline, and that's the Foureyes OMNI-TRACKING module. So Foureyes is the most sophisticated user tracking in the auto industry, and we have a patent on connecting the phone call to the website visitor. What are the phone calls, forms, and chats that are coming off your website? What is the actual media source they came from? We're going to give you the ability to quickly distinguish the quality leads from everything else. So taking a look at Edna, I can see she's a paid lead. I can see other key information in one simple view. Clicking on her name, I can see her whole history across the website and the CRM, as well as an overview of her shopping history. There is absolutely zero reason you should just be dropping leads. However, 13% of sales leads never make it into your CRM. The Foureyes Safety Net module is going to make sure every lead is protected. So rather than haranguing your staff, Foureyes is going to make sure it's done for you. So here with the Safety Net filter, I see Alyssa. She's in the market for 2 vehicles, and she talked to Jeff on your sales floor. We know the exact vehicle she's looking at. She's got a military discount. So this call came in at 2:09 p.m. When we checked your CRM at 4:09, 2 hours later, nowhere to be found. There's zero reason to lose this lead, so we added it to your CRM for you. On average, recovered leads like this, they're going to add about 3 additional sales per month for an average size dealer, so they matter. By leveraging the Foureyes tracking, we're going to significantly improve your ability to engage leads at the right time. So Foureyes is going to help you do that with our sales enablement module. So again, one of the unintended consequences of putting all our information online is buyers are significantly less responsive to salesperson or BDC outreach. So as a result, we are marking or treating as lost a huge percentage of leads that are not actually lost. So with Foureyes sales enablement, we're going to turn buyers' unresponsiveness into a sales advantage. So at quick glance, I can see Natasha. She hasn't had any outreach in over 2 months. But we can see she's back online. She's looking at 2 different black mid-size SUVs. She's got a filter set to under 40,000. So Foureyes is going to send Jeff, her salesperson, a text. We're going to notify him that she's back online, and we're also going to track to make sure he follows up in the CRM. So Jeff can look at detailed information about what she's shopping. He can get suggested topics for a conversation that are based on changes happening to your inventory. Foureyes also sends coffee reports, which are daily email summaries for salespeople and managers to organize their day and make sure each and every active lead is getting worked. Foureyes can connect your sales team to the shopping activity of your leads in a way that's unparalleled in its ability to create sales success. However, the dirty secret is when you hook into Foureyes and see all of the activity of your shoppers online, the average sales team of any store doing any real sales volume, they can't keep up. Your shoppers are shopping you, they're coming back to your website so often, but they're also shopping your competitors. So if you're gonna win, you're gonna wanna keep them coming back to you, shopping your inventory, and feeling like you are the best place to purchase a vehicle. So realistically, a well-run sales team, you can keep up with about 50% of what Foureyes is gonna show you that's coming off your website. The Foureyes Prospect Engagement module is gonna help you keep all your leads engaged. We don't need to reinvent the wheel here. And Foureyes Prospect Engagement, it leverages the same techniques that best-in-class online retailers use to push this information directly to the consumer via email. So for example, sticking with our friend Edna, I can see that she came back to the site from an email. And look, it shows that the Jeep Grand Cherokee that she was interested in, it recently dropped in price, and Edna received an email about that price drop. The best part about Foureyes Prospect Engagement is it's going to run 100% parallel to your sales process, and it requires nothing from you while giving you a serious, measurable boost in close rate. All in all, Foureyes enables your sales team to be more efficient, more effective, more powerful. There's a ton more to see. Because we're Foureyes, we've tracked you've watched this video, and we're excited to hear your toughest sales challenges and see how Foureyes can help you. If you're anxious to get started, you can click enroll and we'll get moving today. Thank you so much. We look forward to speaking with you.